Hello. The following is a conversation with the one and only Lana Blakely, who runs a wonderful YouTube channel that I highly recommend checking out if you're not familiar with it. She explores living intentionally and our relationship with ourselves as well as with others, which is not coincidentally some of the major topics that we touched on in our conversation. Lana has a very interesting approach to conversation that is very much based on questions, asking questions. And so this felt much more like a back and forth conversation than an interview, which is something that I actually prefer. I like it when it's casual like that. So I will link to her work in the show notes and description if you want to check it out. Highly recommend it. And before we dive into this conversation, I have something very exciting to share with you, something that I've been working on for many months, and that is that I have officially launched the Amor Fati rings. Many of you expressed a lot of interest in me bringing back items with the phrase since I first launched items with it last year. It's a Latin phrase, which means a love of your fate or a love of whatever happens to you, which I think is a really powerful way to go through life. I use it as a reminder for me. Since I did my Amor Fati drop, I properly launched my own brand called Cœur, which is the French word for heart. And it also has the same Latin root as the word courage, which is something that I love. There's a connection there. And these rings allow me to bring it all together. They are made of sterling silver and come in a little box with a little message connected to the meaning of the phrase. If you look very closely, within the O of Amor is the star that you see in the O of Cœur. This is how I'm connecting the word with the phrase. And the star represents a lot for me. There's a lot of meaning there. It symbolizes light, guidance, and inspiration. Being a four-pointed star, it's actually reminiscent of a compass, which again is connected to this phrase, as I see it as a way of navigating all of life and all of my experiences. Personally, I am extremely thrilled with how all of this has come out, and the ring lives almost permanently on my finger, on my index finger. So maybe you've already seen me wearing it in some of my videos. For the record, this is a size 10. I do not have large hands, but I do have stubby fingers, and the ring that I gave to Lana was a size 7. She does have much thinner fingers than me. So just a couple of points of reference if you're wondering what size to get. They are unisex, so anyone who is interested in getting them can totally wear them. If you are interested, I will leave a link in the description, and you can also get Cœur clothing to go along with the rings. I think they go great together. I actually wore the t-shirt when I ran the marathon. I've been traveling a lot with the tote bag, so all of it feels very connected to experiences that I've had now. And of course, this goes a very long way to supporting this podcast and my work in general. Thank you so much to all of you for all of your support on this podcast and in general. I feel so lucky to be able to make things like this. And with all of that being said, let's dive into the conversation. Even just before we started recording this, the topic of loneliness came up.
Yes.
And you said something so fascinating. I was like, hold on, just save it.
Yeah.
Save it for this conversation.
Wait, I need to remember. Yeah, I know what is that.
You were saying that you were like, there's different kinds of loneliness. And I was kind of curious what you were potentially going to say after that.
Because, can I say that you told me you've been feeling a bit lonely?
Yeah.
Well, so you told me you've been feeling a bit lonely.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about romance before that.
Yeah.
And then so I asked you, what kind of lonely?
Right.
And then I said, like, friendship lonely or romantic lonely? Because I think it's different. Because I think you can have friends and platonic connections, maybe even plenty of them, but still feel like something is missing. Or you could have a romantic partner and feel like something is missing. So
what you're saying is romantic loneliness is when you have lots of friends, but you don't have a partner.
Yeah.
And
I think it's so different.
Yeah.
I think it's such a different type of connection that you have.
Yeah.
I think romantic partners fill a spot in your heart that platonic friendships don't.
Yeah.
And also vice versa.
Okay, I'm gonna say phrases and you tell me like if you agree or disagree, okay?
Okay.
Is love friendship on hard mode?
I think it's more than that.
It's more than friendship at a higher difficulty.
It's more than friendship, yeah. Because even if you're friends with your partner, there is so much more, I think, that they are, like, the purpose of the relationship goes so much beyond just the friendship, in a way. Because I don't know about you, but I can, like, if I have, let's say I have friends and I'm very happy in that area, but I don't have, like, any romance present in my life, I can definitely feel that. But I can also feel if I have the presence of romance, but maybe I'm not nurturing my friendships or I'm not seeing my friends as much, then that also feels like I'm still missing, like something is still missing.
Yeah.
I think both are just so important in, like, in a way, feeling, I don't want to say feeling complete, but for some people, it's feeling complete and needing both of those.
Feeling complete as in you have friends and you have romance.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Because I was going to say, like, it feels like too much pressure to seek feeling complete by being with a particular person. Like, I just feel like that's just too much pressure.
Pressure on who? Like
Pressure on the person. No
Yeah.
one person can be your everything, right? But you were talking about everything, like ensemble, right? Like the community.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't know. I think, well, I mean, we all know that it's just so important to have just human connections in general. And I think some people are maybe more, for some people, it's more valuable, like to have a lot of friends. For some people, it's more valuable to have like a partner. I think we all just also value different things. Like, I don't necessarily value having a lot of friends. Like, if I have one or two friends that I know, like, love me, I love them, we're there for each other, I'm super happy.
This does not surprise me about you.
I don't feel like I'm lacking.
Yeah.
Like, when I see larger groups of friends hanging out regularly, I don't personally feel like I'm craving that or lacking. Like, once in a while, I do that and I enjoy that. But some people really want that, like those big friend groups, for example, like the ones that you see on Friends and, the TV shows that kind of make us think that everyone needs to have these big friend groups. And then some people are happy with that and they don't really crave romance, maybe, on the same level that some other people do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you feel like do you crave, or do you feel like when you're happy with your friendships, but if you don't have any romance going on, do you feel like there's something missing? Would you?
I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot about loneliness in general because a part of me thinks, and I'm curious what you think about this, sometimes I feel like it's an idea. Like, it's not a real thing.
Loneliness?
Yeah, because, and not to minimize other people's feelings of loneliness. I'm referring just to myself as I explore this idea. But basically, there are times where I'm completely okay with being on my own. And there are other times when I don't feel okay being on my own. And I think the difference sometimes is I get this idea in my head, oh, I should be with someone right now. Like, I will be putting the pressure on myself. I need to be going on more dates, or I need to be hanging out with more people.
Or where do you think that pressure comes from? What's making you feel pressured?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think sometimes, that's an ongoing exploration.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm creating these narratives because I'm trying to just feel good, right? Like, it just makes me feel good, the idea of being around somebody and having their validation, right? But maybe that's just a lot more about running away from being with myself, right? Whereas in other moments, I'm totally okay with being on my own.
I mean, I also have felt sometimes that I'm completely fine being, like, having a small friend group and not having a major social life. But then I go on social media or, something is influencing me to believe that my way of living might be wrong, or like I'm missing out on something.
Right.
Or maybe they are, like, the way that those people that I'm seeing online, for example, are living life the right way.
Yeah.
And I'll question if I'm living life the right way, even though I know that, like, deep down I'm content.
Yeah.
And I enjoy living life the way that I do. But there's definitely something to be said about being influenced by other people. Like, oh, I'm in my 20s, I should be dating. Or I should be going out to, I don't know, the club or the bar, or
You have these thoughts?
not that much anymore.
Okay.
I think more in my early 20s. But I think it's so common. I think a lot of people actually live life in a way that's more of like what they're expected to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get people messaging me sometimes being like, yeah, I'm living this life where I just love books and I love, I don't know, gardening. I have 2 friends. I have my cats. I'm super happy. But I feel like I'm missing out on something because other people my age are living differently. And I think you should explore different ways of living.
But see, that's the thing. That's the thing right there. It's like, I get what you're saying. But I think I don't feel as much the peer pressure from other people. Like I don't care what other people
Okay,
think
so
about
what
my
is it?
life. It's that kind of yearning. It's that longing that I feel, that deep, intense curiosity to experience more things. It's like when I feel that loneliness, sometimes it's me feeling like I maybe I'm trying to run away from certain feelings within myself. But sometimes it's like almost like an impatience. Like I want to have these experiences so badly.
Like,
And
is it FOMO? Like a kind of FOMO?
sometimes it's FOMO, and sometimes I don't know how to describe it other than like a kind of impatience. It's like I deeply, deeply want to know what it means to, like more deeply, you know, the what it means to love, right? Or to be loved, right? And sometimes I get tripped up getting caught up on this because I'm looking externally. And I think there's always a way to look internally to explore these things even more deeply, right? To love and be loved
Yeah.
by myself, right? But sometimes I get tripped up with like I'm looking for someone to, you
But
know
yeah,
what
I
I
think
mean?
that's normal. I honestly, and I've been guilty of kind of promoting a little bit. I think like the loner lifestyle, especially in the beginning of like my videos and stuff. But my intention was never to like make anyone disregard the importance of human connection. Like I think we are a little bit on social media and stuff promoting like be your own best friend and be your own, take yourself on dates and like all these things, which I
Right.
agree with to an extent, but also we need people.
Yeah.
And I think everyone wants love. And maybe some people tell themselves they don't because it feels better than to like not have it and feel like you want it. Like it's easier to accept something if you tell yourself that's how you want it. You know what I mean?
Well, it kind of goes back to if I'm understanding kind of what you're trying to convey
Yeah.
here, like it goes back to the idea of having stories in your head, which like if you can have the story align with what's going on, then that's fine.
Yeah.
It's actually good.
Yeah.
But if the story is like you know, for example, I came to Sweden. I'm putting the pressure in my time here to have a certain kind of experience or to meet certain kinds of people in the time that I have here. I'm creating all this pressure, and that pressure is, I think, the trigger for the loneliness more than alone time, because I like my alone time. Does that make sense?
So is that pressure? What is that pressure? Like if you would describe it, is it like, oh,
It's
I
like
want to experience as much as possible, or I
yeah,
want to have as many stories as possible? Like what is the pressure of that you're feeling?
yeah, I don't know. I think there's a big piece of that. Yeah, it's like I want to have a certain kind of. I got latched on to this certain kind of experience that I want to have in Sweden, my 2023 summer. You know,
Yeah.
and I romanticized it, and it's actually going amazingly. Like I'm having an amazing time. But
Good.
because I get laser focused on certain things, sometimes it can take me out of flowing with things naturally. You know, and that I think can trigger things like the loneliness. It's a thought, I think, before it becomes a feeling, because the thought is, oh, I haven't done enough of X, or you know what I mean? So, but I don't know. I get the sense from you that you're actually quite good at not putting that pressure on yourself, and maybe that's where you became the symbol of the loner lifestyle.
I think so and I think that's why I said I think it's important to explore different ways of living just for yourself to be like, what do I like? Like, do I feel fulfilled and happy when I have a lot going on with a lot of friends, a lot of activities, whatever it is? Or do I actually feel happy having a bit of a slower, more like low key, I guess, sort of lifestyle?
So, do you ever feel FOMO?
I feel like saying no would be lying because I feel like everyone experiences FOMO in like in some regard, but it's not something that is like occupying my mind. Like I can't remember feeling FOMO about a particular situation. But I mean, there are things like, yeah, I'm gonna like this year I told myself I'm gonna say yes more to things. Just because I know I'm gonna feel good having said yes and done more things.
So, it wasn't because you felt you weren't saying yes enough.
No, more because I do want a life that is rich. Like I want stories, I want experiences, but I don't feel
That's
like
exactly it.
but I don't feel like I'm pressuring myself to an extent where it's making me feel like you said, like lonely or like I'm missing out or anything. Like I feel like I have a good balance of experiences, going out of my comfort zone,
Yeah.
but also just being comfortable where I'm at. Like, I don't feel, like you said, why aren't you, we were talking about this the other day when we were hanging out. But you asked me, okay, why aren't you like leaving Sweden in winter? Because it's
Right,
cold and
because
stuff.
it's cold and miserable,
Yeah.
according to all Swedes.
Yeah, and according
Your
to
words,
me,
not mine. Yeah.
it is. It's very cold. It's pretty miserable. And I'm like, okay, maybe my life would be better somehow if I spent the winters traveling or doing something else. Maybe. But maybe I'm also happy being in my comfort zone and being at home and like with my friends and family. Like, I don't know. And part of me
Wow.
tells me that I should explore that. Okay, like maybe I should leave Sweden for one winter and see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be like, that's such a good idea. Or maybe I'll even be like, nah, I kind of liked it at home. Like, I don't know. So I think you should explore ways of living. But I think there's also a way of taking it too far.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what am I chasing?
Well, I'm not going to say my approach is taking it too far because that feels like a judgment. However, I do find that maybe I do put too much pressure on myself because I am drawn so often to exiting my comfort zone, and
Which can be really good. Like, we all should do that to an extent, I think.
It can be, but what you're saying really reminds me of the fact that it's important to appreciate things as well and not be constantly looking at what's lacking.
Yeah, that's difficult.
It's difficult because it's like the two sides of the coin. I love squeezing the juice out of life, and that's how I feel like I live a rich life and how I have had so many beautiful experiences. And I feel that sometimes the urgency has led me to make deeper connections. So that's something I want to explore with you in a moment. But on the flip side, I think that urgency can sometimes take me out of the moment.
Yeah.
Do you have any words of wisdom for striking a better balance?
I think the first thing is just not living in a way that you think you're supposed to live.
Yeah.
Which I think it doesn't seem to be that way for you, but I've been there where, especially when I was younger, with social media especially, of just feeling like you're living life wrong. Like, oh, when you're in your 20s, you should do this. When you're entering your 30s, you should have done that and done this. And I think sometimes there is truth to that. Like,
Yeah.
a little bit, at least.
Like what? Do you have any examples?
Like let's say you want to get married and have kids.
The classic.
The classic, right? Obviously, like for biological reasons, it might be a better idea to strive for that in your, I don't know, 20s, 30s. Because like it's more difficult to get pregnant when you're 50, for example. So in that sense, like sometimes...
Well, not just more difficult. I mean, there's plenty of complications by the time you hit...
Yeah, plenty of complications, and maybe not a great idea.
Yeah.
So in that way, like sometimes there is a timeline. Because this is also something that a lot of people, like I see on social media, where it's like, there's no timeline for anything. But for some things, there is kind of a timeline.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
So I think we but like I don't want to live too, like... all over the place, and there's no timeline. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, because like some things have a timeline, but also I don't need to compare my life experience with someone else's experience. Maybe they enjoy doing that with their lives, but I enjoy doing this, and there is no right, there is no wrong. I think wrong would be lying to yourself. Like, let's say you don't have any friends, you don't like going out, but in order to feel better about that, you lie to yourself and you're like, well, I like this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Just to feel better about that. I don't think that's a good idea necessarily. But if you're genuinely feeling fulfilled by what you're doing and your way of living, then it shouldn't matter what anyone else is doing.
I mean, I think the dangerous thing about all this is like, no one's going to say, yeah, I'm lying to myself, you know? But I think we can kind of subconsciously do that, right? I guess that's sort of what denial is. Right?
Yeah. I think that's a better word.
And there's a lot of denial. And this is the danger of being comfortable in your life, because you can be in denial about things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that about you at all, because I feel like what you do is very intentional in how you live your life and the people you spend time with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid of that. I feel like I see denial as this thing that can block you from a fuller life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's layers to it. It's kind of like you start pulling off some of it and you're like, oh God, there's more there, you know, which is why it's good to do therapy and stuff like that. I guess, do you feel at this stage in your life that there's any denial about anything? That's an intense question.
That's a really good question. Like maybe, yeah, I do think like when it comes to, well, for example, going back to this whole thing of like traveling in winter, I feel like sometimes I am in my comfort zone a lot. Because I do genuinely love my life here in Stockholm. Like having my own place with my dog, my close friends, my family, like dinners, good conversations, nice food. I love that life. But I also know that I love traveling and meeting new people. And some of my best memories are from those things. And so I know that I, for sure, might be a bit stuck in my comfort zone sometimes. And maybe tell myself a bit too much that I'm loving it. And that might be blocking me from new experiences.
Whoa.
Where I'm like standing in my own way, maybe.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very happy when like people like you or other people like travel here or whatever, and they're like, hey, let's do this. And I'm like, cool, now I have a reason to like step a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So I really appreciate when those opportunities come up, but I'm really bad at being the one approaching those opportunities. Like when I was in Paris a few months ago.
And you didn't tell me.
I didn't tell you.
You just said it. You just realized you didn't tell me.
I know. I just realized like
no, it's okay. I don't
but
blame anybody though. No, but there's
it
you know
would
what?
have been fun, you know. But I think I'm just so like sometimes in my bubble. I'm like I'm just gonna stroll the streets by myself. And I'm gonna have a good time, and I'm having a good time.
And
like, I love doing that.
I think that's great. That's your choice. You know, when you go somewhere, you don't have to tell anyone. Sometimes I don't post on social media at all. I don't want people to know where I am. So
mystery.
Yeah. Did you go just to explore the city, or were there friends you wanted to see?
Why did I go? Yeah, no, I just went. I just wanted to like take a little trip by myself.
Yeah.
And it was so enjoyable. I loved it.
Yeah.
But also, I know it would have been enjoyable to reach out to people, to like other creators in Paris. That would also have been enjoyable.
Yeah.
But that's where I think I'm sometimes blocking myself because I've gotten maybe sometimes a bit too comfortable in my own space.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So do you see things, I'm just going to hit you with some questions here because you sparked a lot of thoughts. Do you see life at all as constant sacrifice? It seems like you're describing this dichotomy of either you're sacrificing growth to be comfortable or you're sacrificing comfort to grow or have a richer life, if you will.
I don't know if I would call it sacrifice or exchange.
Okay. Yeah, less violent.
Yeah, but let's see. Yeah, a bit less, but yeah, I think so. I think like everything really in life is some sort of an exchange and some sort of a sacrifice. Like when you are waking up early to go for a run, you're obviously sacrificing your sleep, but you're exchanging it for better health or like fresh air, whatever. So everything, even the small decisions that we make every day, there's always an exchange. And I think what it comes down to is, and this is really difficult sometimes, like you know the exchange is going to be worth it long term. Like you know it's probably good for you to wake up early and go for that run in the long term, in the short term as well, but especially if you do it consistently. But for everyone, I think there is a bit of a battle when we're making those decisions of like, okay, this is benefiting me in the short term. Or when you're like saying no to a social event, let's say, where you know you could have had a good time and met some interesting people. Short term, you get to stay in your comfort zone. You don't have to like deal with people and whatever. But long term, you could have gone and made some good connections, made some good memories. But you just have to sacrifice that bit of comfort, that bit of like, I'm in my bubble and I'm safe. So yeah, everything is an exchange and a sacrifice.
Yeah.
I think. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Clearly, I have a thing going on that you don't struggle with, which is so interesting when you have these sorts of conversations, right? Because, like, I mean, I want it all. I want it all. And I have to, I think for me, a lot of life, a lot of growing up has been about making peace with the fact that, no, you can't have it all. And in a sense...
You can or you can't?
You cannot. And in a sense...
I think you can have it all, not at the same time.
Perhaps, but I guess there's a deeper spiritual truth, I think, to this, which is something I'm unfortunately saying more and more often lately. Not unfortunately. But it's that you can have it all, and in accepting that, in a sense, you can. You know, it's this weird dynamic where when you fully accept and embrace the present moment or whatever the present thing you're doing is, that becomes everything. And I don't want to live my life kind of halfway, trying to juggle too many balls or trying to do too many things at once. Related to this, I'm curious what your thoughts are on, because you're so solid on the decisions that you make. You know, for a lot of people, it'd be very scary to go to Paris alone. And you seem so clear on so many of the things.
Or you're like on a
that you-
different level of doing things alone. Like you just come to Stockholm with no plan. Like I texted you
Me?
like one day before. I'm like, where are you staying? You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're here for a month. What do you mean you don't know?
So we're going to get to that actually,
Okay,
because I have a
yeah.
whole,
Which I love that.
It's all
Like,
intentional.
I envy that sort of like bravery.
no, that's very
Really
sweet.
cool.
But you know, I feel like I see the same thing in you, and I'm curious about how you feel you got there. Was it through living life and reflecting on it that you became clear on the things that you want? Like, how did you get this clarity? A lot of people struggle with this.
I think realizing that all the best things that I have in my life, pretty much, come from having experienced some sort of a discomfort. Like the best memories, the moments of a lot of growth, of a lot of learning, of connections. Like those things have come when I've had to push myself to an extent. When there's been a bit of a battle in my head, like I could not go do this thing and I'll just continue on my day to day and that's fine.
But you're also good at accepting the moments when you let yourself just be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's something that's like a self-love thing that you've got
Maybe.
that I think is impressive. Because it sounded when you first started answering that question like you were contradicting what you said earlier, but I don't think you are. I think there's just like there are times for discomfort and there's times for comfort. I mean,
Yeah. I don't ever want to get stuck in either direction. Like, I don't want to never explore anything or never be uncomfortable. But I also don't want to be constantly seeking new experiences and new places and people. And, like, that's also not really what I'm personally craving. And I think, and it's taking me some time to get there, but I think I've now found a good balance of my day-to-day comfortable life that I appreciate so much and going out of my comfort zone and seeking new experiences and doing that whole thing. And I'm at a place where I'm pretty happy with that balance.
yeah.
But I do know, like I said, like this year, I was like, okay, I'm going to say yes more. Because I felt like I was entering a space of being, like leaning a bit more towards the overly comfortable side.
Totally.
And I think that just requires self-awareness and not being lying to yourself or being in denial of the way you're living your life. So, yeah, I think it's just being confident in your way of living and journaling your thoughts. Like, how am I feeling about life right now? Where am I at? Am I happy? Am I feeling like I'm missing something? Do I wish I had more of this? And you just realize a lot of things about yourself and you check in with yourself. And I think living that way makes you live like with no regrets and no FOMO necessarily, and just living exactly the way that you want.
Yeah.
No? And one thing that I found that works for me is the longer I wait to do something, the more that I think about it, the less likely I am to do the thing.
Oh, so be spontaneous. Just go for it.
Yeah. Like not stupid spontaneous where you're like just doing things that aren't benefiting you at all.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely more, like I have to lean more into my spontaneous side rather than my like practical over analytical side.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like this has been true for pretty much everything that I've done that has been outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Where the more I thought about it, gone back and forth, reflected, asked people and all of that, I either end up doing it, I either end up not doing it, or I end up doing it, but it's just not that great of an experience.
Wow.
When I'm brave enough, I guess, to lean into my spontaneity more, my spontaneous side more, I'm much more likely to do the thing. Like Paris. I think one day I was like, I kind of want to see Paris in spring.
Yeah.
Let's just go for a couple nights. And I think I booked it the same day or the day after. Like something like that.
Yeah.
And if I were to think about it for like 4 days, 5 days a week, I would have been like, I'm not going to go.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I have to force myself, like, either I'm doing it now or I'm just not going to do it.
Wow.
Is that true for you at all?
No, I don't have that. It's
Really?
very different for me. It's
Okay.
kind of like I sort of need to tamper the spontaneity down a little bit.
Ooh.
Like it's actually good for me to talk through certain ideas with
Okay.
people because for better or for worse, I'm highly risk tolerant. So I will take on tremendous risk, and sometimes it's for great gain. Like it's awesome that I do that, and sometimes it's kind of like, wow, I could have thought that through a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Well, do you think, because we're a bit different in the way that I am a bit more in my comfort zone and more comfortable not doing a lot,
Perhaps.
whereas you're on the opposite side where you're like, you want to do so much that sometimes you have to kind of calm yourself down and
Yeah.
reflect a bit more.
Yeah, and I'm trying really hard to learn to be more comfortable in comfort, if that makes sense. Like to accept certain moments being lower stimulus and
Yeah.
less adventure, and there's something that freaks me out about that, but it's not a bad thing. Because I feel one thing I realized at the end of last year as I was kind of going through a bit of a burnout was when you slow down and you quiet things down, the voices within you that are always there sound louder because there's less noise to cover them up. And
Yeah.
there's something freaky about that.
Is that scary?
It is scary. It is a bit scary.
Well, do you sometimes, because I sometimes wonder when I talk to people or hear of people who are what it seems like always on some sort of an adventure.
It sounds exhausting sometimes, right?
Well, for one, yeah,
Yeah.
very exhausting. But also, do you feel like, is that a way to escape something sometimes, do you think?
Well, and that's why I make a conscious effort to slow down and because I have identified that as a deeper form of discomfort actually than going to the other end of the globe. And so that's how I was able to, from my temperament and my sensibilities, make that something that I orient a lot more attention and focus towards. It used to be about like, I want to grow as a person. I want to live a richer life. And when I realized, and I mean, I still struggle with this. So I realized this, but I'm not talking about it from the point of view of like, I mastered this.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like I realized that I can live a much richer, more fulfilling life by confronting those mundane moments, the voices deep within me, for example, or like exploring boredom. There's so much to learn there.
Yeah.
And I don't have to go to India or South Africa or, the tip of Chile or something like that, to make this new discovery about myself.
Well, do you feel like, are you the type of person who, let's say you're spending most of your day at home, like you're working a little bit, you make yourself like a dinner, and you go to bed. Is that like unfulfilling? Do you feel like you missed something that day? Like you should have
It can be,
met up with a friend, or like you should have
Right.
done something?
I think it can be fulfilling. But I've been observing and exploring this kind of need that I seem to have, or this it's almost like a piece of criteria that I have for each and every day. For me to feel like it was a good day, I need to have accomplished something. And that doesn't sound like a necessarily negative thing. I feel like you could see that as some
Yeah.
sort of motivational post on Instagram, right? But I see that just with everything, there's like a flip side to that as well. So it's a driving force in my life, and it has led me on to do a lot of cool projects. But there's this kind of like can I accept my day if I didn't accomplish something?
But
I don't
also,
know. I
what
struggle
do
with it.
you identify as accomplished something?
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's kind of arbitrary, but it's like maybe
Like if you rested and you're
Right.
recharged, is that accomplishing something, or is it more like it has to, like it can't be abstract?
No, okay. So on a theory level, I completely agree with you. Like I completely agree in the value of rest, and I see its value in my life in the times that I've allowed myself to rest. But I get antsy, and so I have to put extra effort and extra attention and focus on. Yes, you need to rest. You need to slow down for me to actually do it, because
So it
I
feels
won't
more
do it.
like a task for you?
It needs to be extra intentional for me to do it. Otherwise, my default is keep going, keep spinning, keep operating at this high frequency. And that's how you burn out eventually, you know? And so my life has been this kind of boom and bust cycle of,
High energy, burnout.
yeah, like intense projects, go, 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 and then burnout, and then recovering
Well,
from
what's
that.
driving that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing that a lot of people around me in my life have been asking me. And there's just this kind of urgency that I'm still exploring and trying to better understand. And other people struggle with things that I don't struggle with, which is kind of the beautiful thing about being human. But there's like
of course. I just think it would be so interesting, like as someone who doesn't deal with that.
which is so fascinating to me.
Yeah,
and
and
I
you're
think
so
it's
fascinating
great.
to me. So that's why I'm like, I wonder what's driving, because I also love like creating stuff.
Yeah.
And all of that. But I don't like, I think I'm more okay with kind of the slower pace. Whereas I feel like you maybe need more stimulants in a way. So I'm curious, like, what is driving that? Like, is it, like we explored a bit earlier, is it I want to have as much done as possible, or I want to have as many experiences as possible, or I want to meet as many people as possible? And if it's that, what is driving that? Is like, I want to be old and have a lot of stories to tell?
No,
or,
see, that's not it. I don't know. I don't, honestly, okay, I don't know. It's not a good answer. So
not
I'll
that it's like
attempt to answer it better.
not that it's like a bad way to live at all.
Right.
It's just I'm curious because I'm a bit more on the opposite side.
Totally.
And so yeah.
Totally.
I wanna know.
I think there's two things going on. I think there's some sort of identity thing going on, right? Where I'm like afraid of not having done enough or not mattering or something like that. So that's something I'm running away from. But there's something also that I'm running towards. And it was that sort of, I want to live a rich life.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it the best way I know how. And there's, I read this quote recently, which is this kind of like I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's sort of like it's only the desire to more deeply understand love that propels us to face many of our fears, right? Or the things that are uncomfortable. I don't know if you agree with that or if that resonates.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to actually what you were saying about my approach here in Sweden.
Yes. Let's talk about
There's a connection here. Okay. First of all, do you agree that this is you could call this the country of introverts?
Ooh. I don't know if Finland is slightly more introverted, maybe.
Okay, but up
But
there.
like one of the countries.
Right.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of perfect, I think, for someone wanting to live more the kind of slower
Yeah.
lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
People give you space and whatnot. And
Yes.
so it was very intentional for me to, up to basically the day of arriving here, not have plans for where I would stay, because I felt this kind of, I just feel this desire to make more deep connections. And one way I've learned to do this through travel, and it's also the most terrifying way to do it, is not plan, come with an open energy, and see what happens naturally. And I had like one or two friends here,
Yes.
and I just asked them and was like, hey, do you know anyone who could let me crash at their place or something like that, which is extra hard in a place like this where maybe it's a little bit out of the norm. I mean, there's welcoming people in every country in the world.
But I agree. Yeah.
And that has led to a lot of really beautiful, really cool experiences, you know?
But so when you do something like that, where you're like, I'm going to go to Sweden for however many weeks.
Yeah.
Because you don't know exactly how long you're staying yet.
Exactly. I don't even have a return flight.
Yeah. So are you ever, because this is not your first time doing something like this.
No,
right?
but no, it's not the first time, but this is like the most maybe extreme, because it's
Ooh.
like, I don't even know how long I'm going to be here, 2
Okay.
weeks, a month and a half, you know?
So are you ever afraid of, because you come here, you don't know, like, you know.
Yes, I'm freaked
a
out.
couple
To answer your question, I'm
people.
freaked out.
So how do you handle that? Like you wake up and I'm like, okay, I don't really know anyone. How do you even, like, because that's very much outside of a lot of people's comfort zone.
I
Right?
mean, it's out of my comfort zone. This is very difficult for me. Today was a tough day, actually, but this is why I was saying loneliness is a thought in many ways, because here I am talking to you, having this great conversation.
Yeah.
But this morning I was just so wrapped up in my mind about, I don't know that many people here, and am I going to be like bored or
Bored.
alone here for the
Yeah.
remaining weeks that I'm here?
Yeah.
But that's exactly why I'm here. Like I
Yeah.
just I don't know why it is that I'm like this, but I like throwing myself off the deep end.
Which is really admirable.
But it's kind of insane too. It's like, do I have to be this extreme? I don't know.
I appreciate that.
Well, that's sweet. That's sweet of you to say.
But I mean, I do. Because a lot of people, I mean, when I travel alone, I'll stay for like 2 or 3 nights.
Yeah.
And I can't really imagine, like, it would be a different level of discomfort of being like, I'm planning to stay for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know how I would go about doing that
Yeah.
and filling my days and like while simultaneously having this urge to, do things and experience things and meet people. And I think
Yeah.
just, yeah. I
I don't know. There's something deeper under there that I'm trying to figure out. And yeah, I don't know. It's just this kind of like, I also feel like it's only through sort of flinging yourself into things. And I'd be curious how you've gone about creating the deep connections in your life. But it's only been through me extracting myself out of my zone of comfort that I've been able to make deeper connections. Like it doesn't happen in my safe bubble at home.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
But for you, you've had a different experience.
Well, I think for me, and this has been in the past few years only, really, because I've always, I think, been, maybe as a way to protect myself, been a bit closed off. Like I haven't been very comfortable with being vulnerable with a lot of people, even my close friends. Like I've always rather been kind of the one who's listening and a bit of like the therapist of the group without really opening up too much myself. Again, I think as a way to protect myself. But recently, I would say like the last couple of years only, I've been exploring more of being more open and more vulnerable with like my friends, the people close to me. And I was just curious. I was thinking to myself, I remember specifically, I went through something like a dip and I was meeting a friend for dinner. And normally I would think to myself, I'm not going to go too much into it with her.
How
Like,
come? Just to not make them uncomfortable?
just to like,
Keep it light?
yeah, keep it light. Not really like, I guess I've had this feeling of putting burden on someone else. And
That's
also just
interesting.
been scared of like, this is my private life. Like, yeah, they're my friend, but do I really need to share details and stuff? And it's just been overall uncomfortable, I think. But then I met her for dinner and I really told her everything that had happened, basically. And what I noticed, which was super interesting, was that from that dinner on, like our friendship just deepened in a
Wow.
way, because I've known her forever and ever. But it deepened in a way that it hadn't before because partly because me being open with her welcomed her to like really offer her opinion and her advice in a way that was more genuine than if I would have just kind of touched the surface on how I was doing or feeling.
Totally.
And also, and this is something that I've learned, was that you have to kind of take the risk of being vulnerable because if you're lucky, the other person will also reciprocate that and be vulnerable to you. And that is going to form a deeper connection. And not everyone is going to reciprocate that. Some people, you'll open up to them, but they will kind of still be closed off and not really go there.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But when they do and you do, like that really, I think, deepens the connection.
Totally. I love how you articulated all of that. I mean, in a sense, the reason vulnerability is so great but so difficult is because it's always a risk,
Yeah.
right? It's always, I'm going to show a little bit of my heart. And
I have no idea how you're going to take it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you might just like take it, throw it on the floor and stomp on it or
Yeah.
something, right?
You might not care. You
Right.
might-
Rejection. Or you might
yeah.
laugh at it, which is
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel stupid or I feel.
Yes. And then you feel like you're in this super vulnerable space where it's like, oh, I just opened up to you and you're not giving me what I had hoped
Yeah.
for. You may not know exactly what you're hoping for when you're vulnerable, but you're hoping for some sort of, I think, reassurance
Yeah.
and of them opening up to you and where you feel like you're kind of equal in that way.
Yeah.
But since then, I think I've been more brave, I guess, in a way, of being a bit more vulnerable and kind of see if the person is matching my,
Yeah.
I don't know, energy, my way of communicating with them.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take a chance with the relationships that you have, whether that's platonic or with a romantic partner, of being open and putting yourself out there, you're not really exploring what that connection could turn into.
Yeah,
You're holding yourself back and you're holding the potential of that relationship back.
totally. And there's a give and take, right? It's like you cannot receive if you only give, right? Yeah, there's like a give and take that it's almost like when I ask people for more, they open themselves up more and I can give more as well, if that makes sense. And that's what has led to deeper connections. Like I ask someone, hey, can I crash at your place? You know, like that's
Yeah.
always delicate because you don't want to impose or cross any lines. But on multiple occasions, that has led to really deep connections with people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I think
It's like a bet. Like you're I think there's really something to what you're saying, because you could start small with someone and like take a long, like, okay, like when we met the
Right.
first time, it was our first time meeting. Like we didn't know each other.
I mean, this is only our second time
This is our
hanging out.
second time meeting. But I feel like we kind of went straight into some pretty vulnerable places.
Yeah, that's true.
With our conversation.
But I'm always down to do that. I felt you would be down to do that. So I was like, let's
Yeah.
go there and see what happens.
Because I think maybe we felt like it was reciprocal.
Yeah.
And so that enabled us to have those like interesting
Yeah.
conversations. If I would have noticed that you're kind of like uncomfortable or you're not really willing to go there, then we wouldn't, or if it was the other way around, we wouldn't have been able to get there with those conversations.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like you respect people who aren't like, who don't want to open up to you quickly.
Right.
But yeah, I just think you kind of jumpstart a friendship or relationship when you are willing to be vulnerable.
The beetle is moving.
Something was in my
It was
throat.
such a good thought you had, which I loved.
I think I finished it.
Great. I love it. Recording a podcast in nature. I haven't done this before. Deep connection seems to be this kind of ongoing thing that I yearn for and long for. So
Do you feel like you're missing it in your life? Or do you
no,
feel like,
I have some really deep connections, but I want more. Like I just love deeply connecting with people. It's like I don't know. It's kind of like looking into a different mirror each time. So I get to see a different side of myself reflected by someone who's from a different culture, who has a different way of wording things.
So, okay, do you think that's one of the most interesting parts of connecting with a variety of people, that you see different sides of yourself?
And they're showing me different pieces of the world. So it's like both things. It's like I have these new thoughts and reflections about myself, and they're showing me a totally different way of navigating through life, right?
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's funny because it's like so often they're grappling with the same exact things, actually. So we're not so different,
Yeah.
you know? And I get a new slice of the world, but the world becomes smaller.
Because you notice that
I notice that they're looking for love and
yeah.
they're trying to figure out the right balance in their life and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I think like our deep desires kind of across the world are more or less similar.
Yeah.
Like we all want to feel loved. We all want to love.
Yeah.
We all want to do something that's making us feel like we have some sort of a purpose in
Yeah.
life. So yeah, I think wherever you go, I mean, I haven't been everywhere in the world, not near it, but I imagine it's not too different
Yeah.
here or anywhere else.
Totally. And to go full circle, yes, we were talking about loneliness before this conversation,
Yes.
but I don't say it as this bad thing because I'm
Okay.
exploring, because I know I know there are people in my life that I can count on, and I know that it's okay to be alone. So when the feeling of loneliness bubbles up, it's something I tried to examine with curiosity, not like this is a problem that has to be solved. I'm talking on a very individual level. I recognize on a societal level, and for many people individually, this is like a real challenge
Yep.
that people are learning to navigate. So I'm not trying to belittle that.
It's not for you, it's not a chronic loneliness, is what you're saying?
I mean,
Or
it's
is it?
it's a.
Do you feel like you have a deep sense of loneliness regardless of kind of where you're at, who you're with, how many friends you have?
The feeling comes and goes, but so it's not chronic in that sense, but it's a recurring theme in my life. So it keeps returning. I thought I had solved it at multiple occasions.
When was the last time you felt like I've solved
So
this feeling of loneliness?
I think life goes in seasons, right? And so there's periods, end of 2021, 2022 was all about like, I was just making so many new friends and like, this is the time I'm talking about organizing salons in my apartment and like having these conversations about art and poetry and whatever. And for portions of that time, it was like, okay, I have all these cool people I'm connecting with and whatnot. But I felt this desire to go inward again and slow it down. I don't know. I felt like there was more to be explored by paring it down, having less people for a period of time.
But so was that your kind of peak of not feeling lonely?
Yeah, I think there were moments there where I was feeling like it wasn't coming up.
So what was it about? Was it about
But at the same time,
number of people you had around you? Was it about like what was it that you think made you feel like, okay, I'm not experiencing loneliness right now?
I think there was a wow, this is so multi-layered, but I was making these new connections, and some of them, I think shallow connections for me exhaust me. So that doesn't help. But basically some of those connections were becoming deep, and I was like learning about these people, and there was something really exciting about that. But there's a part of me, maybe we talked about this a little bit last time we saw each other, but like I can get bored.
Yeah.
Things can get a little too stable and stuck, and then the search begins again, if that makes sense.
So do you feel like you get bored?
Wow, this is such a difficult conversation. There's so many.
It is. The reason I'm very curious about this is because whenever I feel like I'm just so content in life, like you can use the word happy, I guess. When I'm feeling like things are just so great in my life right now, I always try to really like go in here and understand. Because I want to have that feeling forever, right? So I'm like,
take a photo of it, a mental photo.
Yeah, a mental photo. Okay, what exactly is going on in my life right now? Why am I feeling so good? And I try to explore every possible area. Okay, what's going on in work? What's going on in my friendships, relationships? So that's why I'm asking, when you're feeling the least lonely or maybe not lonely, what does that mental photograph look like?
Okay, so here's how I would describe this. Basically, I feel that the depth keeps increasing. It's like I'm unlocking levels. So
with your friends?
In my life, with connection in general.
Okay.
It feels like a few years ago, I didn't even feel like I had very many friends. And it was this thing, I remember I made a video to my future self saying, I hope that you have more people in your life that you're surrounded by that share your values and are interested in doing some of the same things, right? Well, guess what? I did that. I got there. That was really cool. It took a long time. It took years. But by putting out work and being open and giving it a shot, I met some really cool people. Like, honestly, we met this week, and it's part of that kind of that trajectory in my life, and it's been really cool. It's almost like I got there, and then like the next level was unlocked, and I felt that surrounding myself with people all the time, it didn't necessarily address these new questions that were bubbling up. Like, how do I feel about myself? And why do I feel loneliness sometimes, even when I am hanging out with people or something like that? You know what I mean? And so the search deepened. And that's what I mean by seasons of my life. There's periods where it's like, okay, I want to be surrounding myself with a lot of people. And then periods where I'm like, I need to look more deeply inward. And then when I look more deeply inward, it leads to, I think, a greater depth I can bring to my other relationships, if that makes sense.
Okay, so what did you discover when you were surrounded by a lot of people and you looked inwards? Do you feel like do you need new people?
Well, I feel that...
Or do you feel like you need to go deeper with the people that are already in your life? Like, is it the search for something new?
So there were some kind of more surface level revelations. When I was organizing the parties, for example...
In your apartment?
In my apartment. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not this kind of person. Like, it costs way too much energy for me. I feel like the more people I add to a dynamic, the more quickly I fatigue.
Yeah.
So I love one-on-ones. I love maybe groups of 3 or 4. But after like 5, we're starting to seriously drop in quality. For me, it's a different kind of conversation, a different kind of dynamic, right? And so I just don't feel like I get as much out of more group dynamics, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like I see relationships in my life as these like, and myself as these intersecting lines, if you will, okay? Navigating life, okay? And sometimes we cross paths or we're very like close to each other, okay? And for those periods of time, it's really easy to connect and be close with someone. But because we're all growing and evolving and changing, there are times where that can diverge. And I felt that with my relationships, even my closest relationships, where we come closer and we sometimes grow apart a little bit and come closer, you know, with my parents, with some of my closest friends. I just feel that there are phases where we're more aligned and other times where they're interested in other things and I'm interested in different things. And that's why sometimes the search begins again. It's like, oh, where can I find the people that are aligned with what I'm focusing on right now?
Do you feel like you're sometimes, because you live this type of life where you're traveling a lot, you're exploring a lot, you're obviously pretty invested in learning more about yourself and what you want out of life, and many other people may not be that way. So do you feel like you kind of, it's kind of an ugly word, but like, do you feel like you kind of outgrow certain friendships rather
Yeah,
quickly
I do.
because you are on that journey and most people aren't?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect word. I think, and maybe they outgrow me too. Like they're moving in a different direction in their career or what have you, and I'm not interesting, you know? I don't think the word that came into my mind earlier based off of how I was describing things was kind of like discarding. And I'm not discarding people because I feel that's a violent word.
Yeah.
It's just that this is a natural process. I mean, have you felt this for yourself in your life?
Yeah, I've definitely felt that where, and I think it's natural. I think if it's happening all the time, it's just going to be difficult to maintain friendships because, and that's why I think it's so important to, like, when you are investing in a friendship, that you are investing in people who you know are also interested in like growing and exploring and learning, because otherwise like one is going to go in that direction and one is going to go in a different direction. So I've had that with, you know, past friendships where we were very good friends, but then, you know, as time went by, our values kind of started to drift further and further apart, our ways of living, our ways of viewing the world. And at that point, you get to a point where it's no longer fun or inspiring or comforting or any of the things that you were seeking in a relationship. Those things aren't present the way that they were when you initially formed the friendship, perhaps. And at that point, it's no point really in maintaining a friendship that the both of you don't fully want to have.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's difficult, especially maybe doing what we do with our like jobs. I mean, just taking that thing, I think it's sometimes difficult finding people who kind of understand your lifestyle and who, even something like traveling for a month, like most people can't really do that. So you can't really like go travel with your friends randomly unless they're also kind of in this industry or doing something where they are super flexible the way that we are. So yeah, I think that's, now I'm kind of entering a different topic for a second, but that's also I think why I've kind of had to become someone who is comfortable being alone and being by myself, because I know that I can't always drag someone along. It's just not, unless all my friends were like YouTubers and creators and everyone can do kind of whatever they want whenever they want.
Yeah.
Or from wherever they want in the world. It's just not realistic. And so yeah, I don't know.
And I mean, even I'm always going to point towards the spiritual,
Yeah,
if you
go
will.
ahead.
But there's certain experiences in life that no matter who you are or what you do, you're on your own, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you're kind of always on your own in a sense.
right. And
At
that,
the end of the day.
that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That's something, but that's what I mean when I say I explore the feeling of loneliness with curiosity, because I don't want the thought of, oh, I'm alone to block me from embracing whatever's going on.
Yeah. I think on a like rational level, you know that you aren't actually lonely. And I think maybe that can give you some comfort when you are experiencing those moments of loneliness, of reminding yourself that you're living a pretty rich life. You
Yeah.
have a good family, you have close friends, and so
But even then, there's richness just within yourself, right?
yeah.
There's so much going on
Yeah.
internally.
But I think you need to allow yourself to explore that.
Yeah.
And I think you do that by reminding yourself that I'm actually okay exploring this. I'm not actually lonely right now. So let me just explore this instead of being negatively influenced by it and making myself believe that I'm lonely when I'm actually not. That's not to say though that you can actually you can have friends and you can have everything and still feel lonely. So it's not always determined by how many relationships do I have. Yeah, I just really wanted to point that out there, that you can still
Yeah.
feel lonely even if you have all those things that should quote unquote make you feel less lonely.
Totally.
And loneliness is super tricky.
So tricky.
Like sometimes you feel like you have it all and you're still like,
Yeah.
why the hell am I feeling lonely
Yeah,
right
exactly. There's no formula or
No.
recipe that you can follow.
now? There's like, I wonder what that is. Because I think everyone can point at some like moment in their life where they seemingly had all the social life and they had the connections and everything, but they were still like, damn, I'm feeling lonely right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have less of that and you're not feeling as lonely. I don't know. It's super tricky. I mean, that's why we're exploring it and talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I feel like you did an amazing job of taking over here and asking me some
I'm
questions.
sorry.
No, that was amazing. That was great.
Good.
That was great. I just get criticized sometimes in podcasts because they
For?
say like you need to shine more of a focus on the guest.
Well, you guys decide. Did he shine enough light on me?
It's just tricky because I get it. Some podcasts do that, right? But this is meant to be conversational. Like,
No, I see it as a conversation between
Yeah.
the both of us. So, yeah, I hope no one is going to be too hard on you. I feel like it was pretty equal in how much we talked.
yeah.
Maybe
Well,
I'm going to be criticized.
People will
You
criticize
never
everything.
know. You never know.
Well, I appreciate the time.
I appreciate you.
and the willingness to explore these topics.
Yeah.
What I'm learning about running this podcast is not all guests are willing to go there. So it's exactly like what we were talking about before. And I'm always grateful when someone is. So
Good.
thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
That was a conversation with Lana Blakely. Again, if you are interested in checking out her work, I will leave links to it in the show notes and description, as well as ways that you can support this podcast. Principally, picking up one of these Amor Fati rings. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you soon. Is someone hang gliding? Actually, no, I'll let you stay focused.
I think they're searching for someone who committed a crime.
No.
Well, typically they're helicopters.
You think that's what's going on? I guess they are looping around.
'Cause
No, they're coming back around.
oh yeah, they're searching
God.
for someone. So one piece of advice that I have.
Oh my God. It's so funny to act like nothing happened. Oh, that's really good. That was really funny. I could see that was not going to land. Just take your time. I'll just like look at the tree.
That was totally shit.
What?
I think a bird just took a shit.
No.
It really sounded like it was like wet.
Oh my God.
But I don't know. I don't know. Getting yourself to just do something that I found to be true for myself.
I'm sorry. You were doing so good. You were doing so good.
Why are you laughing?
I don't know. It's just so funny, the wavering in your voice. So funny. So funny. Okay, sorry. It's actually like, and
Oh.
what is that?
Should I help you? This is gonna be blooperlicious.
This is so fun.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
What?
Oh my god! There was like a big black
Beetle?
cockroach or something.
No.
Not a cockroach, but like
That would be unbelievably terrible
very
luck.
cockroachy.
Really?
I'm terrified.
Are you serious?
I'm so scared.
Do you want me to like assess?
I think yeah. Can you just look at my hair?
Yeah, no, your hair is fine.
Because if it gets into the hair, we're not finding it. It's making babies.
No,
and
we're good. There's no babies. No babies are being made.
It was that thing.
Let's see.
Is it dead? There.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's minding its own business.
Okay, we're good.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You're good. You're
I
safe.
mean, we're in nature, right?
Yeah.
So it happens.
Happens. Wow, what the fuck?
They're just like flying around. Well, that's the beauty of filming in nature.
I
You
know.
never know what's gonna come.
Probably all of this is going to get edited out.